Hello everyone, today I'm gonna build a PC. The last time I've done it was 2014, so my PC is pretty dated. It was reaching 12 years of life, an upgrade was sometime overdue already. I wanted to build a small PC I could take traveling sometimes, yet powerful enough for 4K and 6K video editing, energy and cost efficient. Not everything went according to plan, but the result is satisfying anyway. And this is what I was using until now as my main editing PC, the i5 4690K partially upgraded 2 years ago with 32 gigs of fast DDR3 memory, new SATA SSD, power supply and MSI RTX 3060 12GB card. This PC deserves few words of praise, as for its age, it was still able to process simple editing of 4K or 6K footage and never really let me down. It was getting too slow for my needs though. Slow to boot, start programs, and heavier edits with stabilization, fusion or noise reduction were becoming painful. I was planning to build in a 4-liter case, but some Amazon seller sent me a full ATX motherboard instead of mini ITX. Checked specs and reviews, it's actually a good board and the same socket as the CPU I bought already. Didn't want to waste time on returns and decided to build on this one. First I bought the CPU, it's i5 13400. Not the speed demon, but couple of times faster than my old one. Very power efficient, with decent iGPU, and this is the cooler for it, but with a 4-liter case on my mind. Time to match the CPU with the motherboard and install the cooler. Standard procedure, nothing unusual. Mind the orientation, check for bent pins or debris, carefully place the CPU in the socket and close the clamp. This orientation looks good, heat pipes not clashing with any other components, even cable is facing the correct way. Little bit thermal paste applied, place the cooler carefully in place, flip the whole cake upside down and install backplate. Nuts should be only hand tight, in cross pattern, with a feel of a loaded spring plus 1 turn each. Opening a new box of fancy DDR5 memory in January 2026 feels like opening a gold bars. That shiny foil glint, the fresh silicone smell, and the realization that you've just dropped the price of a small gold bar on RAM sticks that glow like jewelry. Mind the slot occupancy guidelines before installing. Time to do the post-test of this combo. I need to make sure that this inexpensive second-hand CPU and motherboard from questionable Amazon source actually works before I put any more work into building this PC. Making sure to short correct pins to start it. Fan is spinning, LED shows progress, no video signal. Ah, there it is, I'm saved. And after longer wait there is motherboard logo, super. LED is green, I believe that's the way it should be. All the components are visible in BIOS, it is safe to put the second memory stick in and boot again. Boom, it shows 32GB of RAM now, more than enough for my needs. By the way, I really wanted black case, but it was out of stock Christmas time 2025. I decided, first of all, I wanted to build something really small, something like a 4-liter, but so they gave me the full ATX motherboard instead. So I didn't want it to go through the hassle of returning the motherboard to Amazon and then ordering another one. I decided to build on what they shipped. An MSI Z790 Tomahawk Wi-Fi, which is pretty good motherboard, and this is the smallest case I could find which take full ATX motherboard. This is something I had to order separately because the original riser was too short to fit with the ATX motherboard, so this is the longest possible version. Also remember to untick the option for the original PCIe riser, because you're not gonna need the short one with ATX motherboard. I was thinking to use the ATX power supply, but then I decided to go with the proper one, SFX Cybernetics Platinum Sharkoon, which is a German brand made in China, but it has very good reviews, nicely packed. This is set of all the cables. This is a modular power supply. There it is. I don't know why does it have 2 power switches, but I'm gonna figure this out later. I decided to go with the 850 watts, which is gonna be more than enough for what I'm putting together now, but also gonna give me some headroom for future upgrade, because I think I'm gonna get a better GPU in the future. I might also get better CPU in the future. Then I ordered two SSDs. This one is a 2TB T705 Gen 5, which I'm gonna use for a scratch drive. I need quick drive for editing videos for YouTube. Nice and small, 2280. Unboxing of NVMe drive will give you another piece of jewelry feeling. Okay, let's get to it. I guess I need to open this case and prepare it. These clips are not very strong, really. There are some accessories inside, a lot of bolts, tie wraps for cable management, 90 degrees bent cable to the monitor. Looks like everything I'm gonna need. And this is just the extension cables from the front USB ports and power button to the motherboard. I'm just gonna take them all off just in case I scratch it or something. Ooh, this is gonna be tight. I have the motherboard already pre-assembled before, and I already booted up just to verify that it's working, because this motherboard is actually from Amazon and the CPU is a second-hand CPU as well, 13400, so I wanted to verify that it actually posts, but it does, so I'm happy at the moment. I'm gonna fit in the new SSD into Gen 5 slot. There it is. I believe the Gen 5 is the O2 slot. The O1 slot I'm gonna use for system SSD. Okay, this looks like it was never used. That's good. I like that. And I guess I have to pre-root the PCIe riser before I put the motherboard in. The motherboard gonna go this way. Okay, now I see only 1, 2, 3, 4 mounting points. I don't know why it's only 4. I knew this case gonna be fun. Okay, that's more or less straight now. I'm going to take out some brackets because there is literally no space to do anything here. It's supposed to be somehow pre-banned. I'm not entirely sure. I don't usually read instructions, but I guess I'm gonna have to have a quick look on this one, which is pretty extensive, but I'm not gonna install AIO, so this should make it easier. Oh, there is instruction how to fix the PCIe riser. Okay, I'm gonna try to follow that. Instruction says to take off the front bracket completely, which is the top bracket. This part, oh my god, it's a lot of screws here. 100 screws later. It's time to put these two brackets in place. They're gonna hold the end of the PCIe riser and the GPU itself. I think I've installed it the correct way the first time, but the lip was in the way of bent riser cable, so I reinstalled it at the other side and with the lip facing motherboard. This gave me clearance for the cable, but also caused the GPU to sit at the angle while installed. The instruction says add 20mm stance somewhere here. I am not sure how to do it correctly, but I will leave it as it is, as it's not causing any issues except visual inside the case. Well, the PCIe riser was pre-banned, but I don't think it was pre-banned properly. I have to straighten it up next to the GPU connector in order to get it in the proper direction. Now, at least I know it's facing the right way. Now this is supposed to face down and under. Okay, I got the riser pre-banned myself. Unfortunately, I had to do it. Now let's see if this is gonna fit. Yeah, now it makes sense actually. So the GPU is supposed to be facing this way, then the cable to the motherboard is facing the correct orientation as well now. Okay, let's put it on. Now it's time to put the motherboard. So this is supposed to bend under the motherboard like this. Okay, that should fit, but I have the feeling I'm missing some standoff, which is this one, and this should be somewhere here. I believe this is the correct spot. We'll see. Let's see how the motherboard can fit in this. Double checking of the standoff placement and motherboard clearance to PCIe riser mount and cable. This whole middle section is not attached. I think I need a little screw here to hold it in place. Okay, more sturdy now. And the motherboard is held by 5 screws and this corner is just dangling, so need to be careful with it. And this is my 3060 12GB Aero. Small card, not super powerful. Well, I have a problem here. Here, there is no support with a screw. There's supposed to be a L-shaped bracket in the kit, but there is nothing like this. Okay, let's try to improvise. I've loosened these 2 screws, just a tiny bit. Let's see if the graphic card can actually get in here. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it without a bracket at the moment, and I'm gonna be very careful handling this, because this is not secured properly. It's literally resting on this bracket and it's held by the clip in the connector. Gen 4 drive is on the way. A few days later I'm gonna put it in. Temporarily I'm gonna use old SSD just to put it up and use the PC. Okay, this riser cable is way longer than it should be. Let's see how the power supply gonna fit in here. Okay, I'm gonna try, but highly unlikely this is gonna fit there. This is a tight fit. Oh my god. Small form factor builds. Okay, so I'm gonna need to push the access to the back and connect this as flat as possible here, or keep the access here. Like that. Probably not a bad idea. Let's try to put this bad boy in again. There is only a little bit access at the bottom. Can possibly bend in a little bit. Yeah, that's not the end of the world. I think I'm gonna go with that. This funny bracket is coming in contact with the plastic power connector. Okay, I was able to temporarily secure the graphics card with a tie wrap around the mounting plate to the center bracket, motherboard bracket, and now it's pretty stiff. At least I'm not worried of breaking the PCIe connector. Also bent in the cables here, which is more or less flat. I might use some tie wraps to keep them in as well. Power supply is in and it's secured with 4 screws. Now it's time to attach the front bracket and to route all the power cables and cables to the front USB connectors. Okay, I'm gonna try to attach the front bracket, and of course there is an issue here. The wires from the power switch are hitting the motherboard very hard, so I have to literally squash them in there. Now connecting the USB 3 from front panel. Okay, this is actually not bad at all. And this is for the regular USB 3.0, the flat USB. And then the power switch has to go all the way to the bottom. Okay, so now just to route the power lines from power supply to all the equipment and try to boot. Power supply to motherboard, CPU, and don't really have to connect both CPU cables, but while I have them, now let's connect temporary system SSD. So this is it. It's finished temporarily. So I'm gonna need to do some changes, but I was able to route the display port to the back quite nicely. Antennas are installed. This is actually pretty heavy. Knowing that I will not be using this PC in upright position as it should be used, but lying flat with the GPU facing down, I've decided to add a fan to this case to create some extra airflow. Attempt to use it on the inlet failed. It was rubbing badly against the case. Flipped it around as a top exhaust and it was spinning freely, but this Arctic P14 Slim PWM 140mm and only 16mm tall fan fitted there with zero tolerance. None of the mounting points in the case were usable, but it was sitting so tight that I just left it as is. There is some channel left above the motherboard for pipes in the future if I ever decide to upgrade CPU and install AIO, but the space available in this configuration for the radiator is not that impressive without modifications. Let's put the panels on and boot it up. That's it, it's finished and it's looking good. And this is how it compares with my old PC, way smaller considering the same size of the motherboard. Time for the first boot of a complete PC. BIOS showed up shortly after. Happy days! Activating XMP profile for memory. Let's see if this CPU can handle this fancy 6400 MHz low CL DDR5 memory. According to specs, it supports DDR4 3200 and DDR5 4800, but this is Z790 motherboard showing DDR5 5600 compatibility. Let's see what happens. Quick check on fan curves and idle temperatures. Everything looks normal. Reboot and higher memory speed is accepted. Let's boot Windows and do some more tests. Cinebench 2026 CPU multithread. Results were hovering around 2600. Not super impressive in comparison list, but it should be way more than I actually need comparing with 700-ish on 4690K CPU. Looks like 4x the thread count and nearly 4x the performance with nearly twice the max TDP. So there is some actual progress done here 9 generations down the road. CPU Z scores around 6500 in multithread, whatever it means, but I want to see CPU temperatures after a while and wow, this is a really efficient CPU at 72 degrees Celsius with this tiny cooler. Same GPU I was using on the old PC was scoring around 26,000 points, now jumped 19% with nearly 5,000 points better score. Playing this 4K footage with a little bit noise reduction was still very choppy, but jumped 1 FPS comparing to the same GPU in the old system. This is natively a PCIe 4 GPU, but the bandwidth can be nearly fully saturated in PCIe 3 slot with only 2% transfer drop, so 9 generations older CPU was actually undercutting this GPU by 17% in synthetic benchmarks. Real-world test of 4K footage stabilization showed nearly 4x the performance jump with same GPU, but this is CPU-bound task in DaVinci, and it's doing it with just 30% utilization. Wow. I was already using the system while the secondary NVMe arrived, 1TB 990 Pro. The only PCIe 5 slot is already occupied by the super duper crucial Scratch NVMe, and it's sharing bandwidth with the GPU anyway in this configuration, so it was a logical choice to get a reliable PCIe 4 SSD for a system drive. Now, installing the 990 Pro is a whole new chapter in this PC. Big upside of this case is easy to open from every side, take out some fan bracket, but that's the end of easy. Using ATX motherboard and Mushroom S V2 case gonna force you to take out the power supply and disconnect PCIe riser every time you want to access NVMe slot 2, 3 and 4. That's done, take off the heatsink, put the new SSD in place and lock it in. Now install the heatsink, replug PCIe riser to the motherboard and reinstall the power supply. Done, all drives visible in the system. I've cloned the whole Windows 10 system drive from old PC and it worked. Well, kinda. I was trying to avoid reinstalling all the software, but I ran into some drivers issues and so on. I decided to go Windows 11 Pro route at the end, and I didn't regret it too much so far. It looks good and it's snappy, but updating is too frequent and corrupts audio drivers for this motherboard, so I had to block it. Now I'm gonna try to address some 3060 12GB GPU related issues in DaVinci. In some extreme scenarios I would get GPU memory full message despite the fact that actual memory usage was way below the available value. Resolve would also crash sometimes, not letting me save the latest changes. Don't mind me wrong, it's a great inexpensive GPU for 4K and even 6K editing, but I think drivers and DaVinci itself have issues. I found this pretty A4000 16GB Ampere card for cheap and decided to give it a go and test if 16GB VRAM is enough for my needs extrapolated to few years. Ideally I would like better performance GPU with 24GB VRAM or more. I was thinking about 3090, but they are huge and my PC is lying flat GPU side down, so fans would be choked. I also didn't want to spend €800 plus for a 5 years old card famous for overheating, memory issues and without warranty. I'm attracted to Pro cards, so Pro 4000 Blackwell would be a go, but price is higher than the whole build. Few minutes later she was installed and ready for testing. Latest NVIDIA Pro driver downloaded and installed. Very impressive Cinebench result, 46,000 points comparing to 31,000 on 3060 same generation card with higher TDP. FurMark 4K scored actually 12 FPS less, but the card was throttling and had temperature good enough to fry eggs. Real-world mild noise reduction playback gained only around 1 FPS, same as heavy noise reduction playback. CPU-bound video stabilization speed stayed within the same range. I've encountered one annoying issue with this new GPU. Quite frequently, while quickly scrubbing the timeline or when GPU is hot, the whole PC would slow down extremely until rebooted. This was not the case with RTX 3060 12GB. Apparently, that's the behavior of the studio driver for Pro GPU. Old GPU would stutter or crash DaVinci. This one is designed for stability. I could still save my work before rebooting. I have asked Grok for solution. Simple driver restart, Windows Control Shift B, screen flashes and PC gets back to normal, but it was happening too frequently. Following Grok's advice to add 2 registry entries kinda solved the problem, but I also needed to switch off GPU scheduling in Windows and do some other tweaks. I really shouldn't have to force it to behave. I guess I have to get used to this message considering ECC VRAM and Pro drivers didn't fix it. I edited the fan curve to more aggressive one which actually worked and prevented the card from throttling above 83 degrees Celsius, also mildly overclocked to see what it can do. I've gained 4 FPS in FurMark 4K and kept the temperatures in check, but real editing performance gain was marginal and still lacking. As I've started using NR quite frequently, I didn't want to waste time and play around with proxies, rendering in place or other tweaks. And then there was a noise issue with this A4000 single fan blower style card. Constant kind of metallic whine and air moving quickly through a little heatsink. Not unbearable, but annoying. These cards are designed to work in workstations and servers with forced airflow. Blackwell card would be probably quieter and way more powerful, but twice the price of equivalent performance consumer GPU. I don't think I'm gonna need that, but it's there. I finally snagged the gaming used 3-month-old Gigabyte WindForce OC RTX 5070 Ti. Cool card, performance silent switch. I will leave it in first setting for now. Big heatsink with triple fan, metal backplate, recessed 16-pin power connector might actually save the day in mushroom case. I was also considering 5080, but it's good bit more expensive now for small gains compared to 5070 Ti. I knew the performance was going to be on another level. It rocks much better video decoder, some new AI features possible to utilize by newer versions of DaVinci, sticks with the same 16GB of VRAM that should be still okay for my needs going forward, and it's compact with only 2.5 slots thick. This will leave me 10 to 20 mm of space between fans and the case for airflow. These cards are known for some thermal gel leaks, and this one might be affected. Serial number tells me that it's from the end of V1 production where Gigabyte reduced the amount of gel and risk of leaking. They have quietly released V2 afterwards and replaced fancy server-grade gel with traditional thermal pads. I guess I'm safe anyways, as this one gonna work in horizontal upside down position. In case of gel leak, it will end up on the heatsink. I'm sure I have to install the 16-pin power cable and remove the 8-pin one. Now taking out this small Pro GPU was easy, but mounting new one requires removing whole front bracket of this case. I strongly suggest to loose up the screws holding PCIe riser before mounting big and heavy GPU in this case to avoid putting too much strain on the connector. SSUPD was quick in responding to missing bracket complaint, but it probably won't arrive quickly considering the situation in the Middle East. I have to improvise with tie wraps to keep it in place for now. Still bent slightly center section of the case and one of the motherboard standoffs is causing the GPU to sit at an angle. Doesn't really bother me once there is space around the card. I will not waste time making it look perfect inside. Power cable routing shown on this picture didn't work. Front panel wouldn't close. I've had to route it around the bottom edge of motherboard and length was just enough to do so. Removed some unnecessary brackets from the case to save weight. Ended up with 7.5 kilograms. Not very light, but good enough to put in a suitcase. Nice to see new mid-range card at the top of the unimpressive Cinebench list with twice the performance of a A4000 ampere card. Very nice temperature at high load, silent at low usage and acceptable even at the highest fan speeds. FPS jump in playback of footage with noise reduction applied isn't that great, but the real-world experience is good. Playback is little choppy, but it actually plays, let's say, at half the speed with sound. That's impressive and makes the footage editable without tricks. Typical values while working on this color-graded Samsung phone 4K 60 frames per second footage in a 20 degrees Celsius room. CPU sits at around 10% and below 55 degrees Celsius. GPU at 20% and below 40 degrees Celsius. Surprisingly, NVMe drives are the hottest at 60 plus degrees, followed by just little cooler Southbridge. I'm not surprised. Airflow to the drives is heavily crippled by the PCIe riser cable and PSU sitting tightly on the system drive. NVMe's, Southbridge and VRM's heatsinks are actually quite hot to touch. It's not that bad yet, but I will add intake case fan on the CPU side of this PC to help with airflow, just in case. Total power draw in this most common scenario sits just over 100 watts, which is fantastic. And this is the noise level during normal use or light editing. Microphone was placed next to the PC and picked up some minor vibration noise too, unnoticeable in real life. 1 meter away, PC is near silent and fades in with other background noises. When pushed hard, I can hear it actually working. Furmark 4K shows decent 134 FPS and very good temperatures. And this is noise at full load next to the PC, 1 meter away. I know it's there, but it doesn't bother me at all. It's not unpleasant, no high-pitched scream or common on these cards coil whine. Overall, this was quite complicated but very satisfying build. New PC is ready to work for few years to come and it is travel friendly. Thank you for sticking with me till the end and see you next time.